The sun was melting into the mesas when Silas McGraw rode back toward his lonely ranch, the dust of the trail clinging to his coat like memories he wished he could shake loose, memories crowded with gun smoke, old battles, and faces of men who never made it home. He had long ago traded the roar of gunfire for the quiet of the open plains, hoping the wind would carry away whatever burdens still clung to him. But that evening, as the sky blazed orange and crimson, fate placed something in his path he had never expected, a young Apache girl no older than 10, trembling beside a fallen pony, her dark eyes watching him the way a sparrow watches a hawk, full of fear but refusing to run. Her braids were dusty, her clothes torn, her small hands stained with dried blood, likely not her own. Silas dismounted slowly, as though afraid to startle a spirit, and approached her with the same caution he had once used when approaching wounded wolves. The girl didn't move, her voice barely a whisper in Apache, a word Silas didn't understand but recognized in tone, "Help." Against every instinct telling him to ride on, against the warnings of nearby townsfolk who spoke of rising tensions with Apache bands, Silas lifted the girl into his arms, feeling her shake with exhaustion and hunger, and rode hard toward his ranch. By the time he crossed the wooden gates, she had fallen asleep against his chest, trusting him without reason, without guarantee. He laid her in the spare room, covered her bruises with care, and wondered what spirit had guided her into his life. That night, the desert wind howled like an omen, rattling the windows as if warning him that saving this one girl would change everything, his quiet life, his peace, his heart. He tended to her for days, learning her name, Sonny, and though she barely spoke his language, she followed him around like a shadow, watching him mend fences, water the horses, and prepare meals with silent curiosity. And he, in turn, found in her presence something he hadn't felt in years, purpose. But peace never lasted long on frontier soil. One evening, as Silas chopped wood outside the ranch house, he felt the unmistakable prickle of being watched. When he turned, he saw her, standing at the edge of the yard where the moonlight met the dark. A tall Apache woman, fierce and beautiful, braided hair gleaming like obsidian, bow in hand, her stance both protective and commanding. She was the kind of woman carved from firelight and legend, a warrior with eyes that carried stories older than the territories themselves. Silas stepped forward slowly, hands raised, not in fear, but respect. The woman spoke first, her voice steady but trembling with the rage of a mother whose child had gone missing. Sonny ran past Silas, crying out, and the woman knelt, pulling the girl into her arms in a reunion so raw and powerful it made Silas look away, as though intruding upon something sacred. When the woman finally turned her gaze back to him, the hatred he expected was not there, only caution, conflict, gratitude buried beneath years of battle-hardened mistrust. She introduced herself as Kiona, warrior of the White River Apache. And though she said no more than necessary, Silas felt a shift in the air between them, something dangerous, something magnetic, something that promised to unravel everything he thought he knew. As Kiona stood under the rising moon, holding the child he had protected, Silas sensed in her presence the beginning of a story far greater than a simple rescue, a story that would drag him into the heart of the wild frontier, into a clash of cultures, loyalties, and hearts. He didn't know it yet, but this fierce Apache mother, this woman carved from desert storms, would not only change his life, she would claim it. And somewhere deep inside, a spark ignited, when he believed long-dead Kiona returned to Silas's ranch at dawn the next morning, the desert glowing gold behind her as though she carried the sunrise with her, moving with the silent grace of a mountain lion though her heart beat with turbulence. Silas was feeding the horses when he saw her silhouette approaching, her presence so striking that even his Mustang snorted and turned its head in uneasy respect. She had come not with weapons drawn but with questions, suspicions, and a desperate longing only a mother could bear for the safety of her child, and Silas braced himself as she approached, her dark eyes cutting into him like flint against steel. She demanded to know why a white cowboy, especially one known to have once worn a marshal's badge, would risk his life to shelter an Apache girl in troubled times. Silas listened quietly, then answered with the honesty of a man who had spent too many years lying to himself, because no child deserves to bleed alone on the desert floor. Something softened in Kiona then, just a flicker, but enough for her to sit with him beneath the wooden overhang as Sonny slept inside, exhausted from the ordeal. Over the next hours, Kiona revealed the truth. A raiding party of renegades had attacked their small camp, seeking to provoke conflict with settlers and soldiers alike, and in the chaos Sonny had fled on her pony, becoming separated from her people. Kiona's voice cracked only once, a tiny fracture in her armor, when she confessed how she had tracked her daughter's trail for days, fearing each sunset would bring news no mother should hear. Silas listened, captivated not only by her words but by the storm of strength and vulnerability swirling within her, and something primal awoke in him, a pull he hadn't felt since youth, a deep ache to protect, to understand, to stand beside someone who needed no saving yet deserved the world. As hours passed, the uneasy suspicion between them shifted into something like respect, a fragile bridge built from gratitude and unspoken curiosity. Kiona stayed longer than she intended, watching how Silas treated Sonny, how gently he offered her food, how patiently he taught her English words she repeated with shy pride. When Sonny laughed, a sound like wind chimes in the canyon, Kiona's heart broke and healed at the same time. She had expected cruelty from a white rancher, but instead she found tenderness, a tenderness dangerous enough to blur the lines between enemy and ally. But the frontier never allowed peace to settle for long. As the sun dipped low again, hooves thundered in the distance, 3 armed settlers rode toward the ranch, rifles across their saddles, hatred burning in their eyes. They accused Silas of harboring an Apache child, claiming the local town feared an attack and demanding he hand Sonny over. The tension in the air thickened like gunpowder. Silas stepped forward, his jaw tight, telling them they had no right to the girl. Kiona moved beside him, bow drawn, her posture unyielding. For a moment, the ranch fell silent except for the distant cry of a hawk circling overhead. The settlers jeered, called Silas a fool for siding with savages, and promised to return with more men. As they rode off, dust rising behind them like a storm, Silas felt the weight of the choice he had made. Protecting Sonny meant war with the very people he once served. When he turned to Kiona, he saw something shift in her eyes, trust. Not complete, but enough. That night, as stars blanketed the desert sky, Kiona and Sonny slept in the bunkhouse while Silas kept watch outside, his rifle across his lap, listening to the coyotes howl across the plains. And as he sat beneath the silver moon, he realized something terrifying. He cared for this Apache mother and her daughter more deeply than he should. He wasn't just protecting them. He was becoming bound to them. And though danger loomed over the horizon like a gathering storm, Silas McGraw knew one thing with burning certainty: he would fight the whole frontier if he had to, because the wild heart of an Apache woman had already stolen his.